Class, our objective today is to divide a whole number by a fraction. That's visible on the video? Okay. So, to divide a whole number by a fraction. So a whole number, Robert, give me a whole number. 8 would be a whole number, okay? And a fraction has two parts. What are those two parts, Cassie?
It's the numerator and the denominator.
Very good. Okay, so we're going to be dividing whole numbers by fractions. Now, we've talked about the fact that there's a general process that's followed in order to do this. And that general process is invert and multiply. But today we're going to discuss why. Why we invert and multiply when we're dividing by a fraction. Okay, now this is a question that many college students would not be able to give you the answer to. So, after we're done, you guys pay close attention. You'll be able to set them straight on a few things. Okay. When we're dividing, first of all, what are we trying to find out? Robert?
How many times a certain number goes into the other number, into a larger number.
Okay. Now we have certain terms for the parts of excuse me, for the parts of a division problem. We have the dividend. Now this is the number that is being divided. And it's being divided by our divisor. And Josh,
Yes.
what do we call the answer?
The quotient.
Is our quotient. Okay. Now, it's important to remember these terms. A lot of times you hear people say, why is it, these things are important. Why? Why is it important that you remember these terms, Robert?
So that you don't get all of them mixed up.
Okay.
As in,
when would you get them mixed up?
Or quotient. You forget which one is.
Which one's which?
Yeah.
Okay. Cassie,
And
do you have another reason?
It's important to remember them when we're doing the equations.
When you're doing the equations, but why is it important that you remember?
So that you know what works with what.
Okay. Any other reasons why you guys might think of why it might be important to know those terms? Josh?
So that there's a few reasons, but so that you know where each value goes in your equation, and then it also makes it easier just for discussion, conversational use
to communicate what we're
understand.
talking about. That's one of the main reasons why I want you guys to know what these terms are, because when we're in a classroom situation and we're trying to talk about these kind of equations, if we don't know what the different terms are called, we end up saying stuff like, the thing that breaks the other thing into parts and it equals that thing. Well, that doesn't make sense. We have to have these terms so that we can communicate our thoughts to each other. Okay, so in this equation, 6 divided by 3 equals 2. Cassie, where's our quotient?
2.
2 is our quotient. Robert, what do we call the 3 in this equation?
The divisor.
We call that our divisor, yes. And Josh, where's our dividend?
6.
6 is our dividend. Okay. Now pay close attention to these, because I'm going to be erasing them off of the board in just a moment, and you guys are going to need to be able to remember. Dividend divided by divisor equals quotient. Okay. Another thing that we need to remember when we're working with equations such as this is that we can help ourselves wrap our minds around them by drawing at times. Okay? We'll use this example. Our dividend is 6. We have 6 little circles here, okay? Being divided by 3, so into groups of 3, right? How many 3s can we find in 6? Bethany?
2.
2. Here's a 3, and here's a 3. So our quotient is 2. So that phrase that we just used, how many 3s, using our divisor, can we find in 6, our dividend? We're going to use that phrase to solve equations that have fractions in the place of our divisor. Okay, you guys got that? Dividend divided by divisor equals quotient?
Yeah.
Because here it goes. Okay. Now take a look at your worksheets. Each of you has a worksheet. Let's take a look at, using that same process, a division problem that has a divisor that's a fraction. Okay. Our divisor right here. Using that phrase, how are we going to solve this? How many, Robert, can you complete the phrase for us?
How many 1/3 can we find in 1?
How many 1/3 can we find in 1? And what would be the answer to that, Josh?
3.
Okay, so our quotient is 3. All right, we're going to practice that phrase. How about this one? 1 divided by 1/4 equals, okay, using our how many phrase, Cassie, can you put this into our how many phrase?
How many 1/4 can be found in 1?
How many 1/4 can we find in 1? And how many can we find, Cass?
4.
So our quotient is 4. The next one that we have there, 1 divided by 1/2. Bethany, can you put that into our phrase?
How many halves can we find in 1?
How many 1/2 can we find in 1? And
2.
you can find 2, so our quotient is 2. Do you guys see a pattern here?
Yep.
What is our pattern? Robert?
See, the quotient
The quotient.
is always the same as the denominator of the divisor.
Okay. And this is true in all of these. However, there's one,
The 3.
well, there's one thing that has to be true in order for that to be true. You'll notice that our dividend is also equal to our numerator. If our dividend is equal to our numerator, our quotient will be equal to our denominator. Dividend equal to numerator in the divisor. Quotient is equal to the denominator in the divisor. You see that in each one of these. So, what's our solution going to be to this equation? 1 divided by 1/5. Robert?
5.
Our quotient is 5. Okay. Using this same process and using the phrase that we have learned, we're going to move on to a slightly more complicated equation. And we're going to look at several different processes that we can use in order to solve that equation. We're going to look at 3 divided by 3/4. Okay. How should we approach this to solve this, to find our quotient? Josh, how would you approach this?
Using the rule that you just mentioned, that the dividend is equal to the numerator
In our
then
divisor.
in our divisor, then the denominator in the divisor should equal our quotient.
Okay. 3 divided by 3/4 equals 4. Now, we're going to use a couple of other processes also, not only to just have different ways to solve this, but also so we can kind of check that and make sure that that's correct, okay? Now, one thing I want to bring up at this point is 3/4. What is 3/4? Cassie?
It's 3 1/4.
It's 1/4 3 different times, right? 1/4 3 times. Okay. If 3 is being divided by 3/4, then we have 3 divided by 1/4 and divided by 3. Okay. Now, when we're multiplying or dividing, we can divide our terms into smaller terms and still have it work for us as to complete the equation, such as 6 times 7 equals 42. If you have difficulty remembering that, we can break that down and we can say 6 times 7 is the same as 5 plus 2, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then we say 6 times 5 equals 30. 6 times 2 equals 12. That's 30 plus 12 equals 42. That's our product. That's our answer. And we can do the same thing with division. With this one, we can say 3/4. We're going to divide by 1/4 first, and then we're going to divide by 3, because 1/4 equals 1/4 3 times. Or I'm sorry, 3/4 equals 1/4 3 times. So, using our statement, our phrase, how can we figure out this first part of our equation? Robert, how many, go ahead and use our phrase and put this first part of our equation into that phrase.
How many 1/4 can we find in 3?
Okay, let's look at 3 candy bars. That's kind of a weird candy bar, isn't
It
it?
looks a little like a Hershey's.
Well,
Look,
here, well,
it's a little white.
nah, sorry. It melted a little bit. Okay. Okay, each of these sections is 1/4 of a candy bar. We have 3 candy bars. So, how many 1/4 do we have in 3? Cassie?
We have 12.
We have 12. Okay. So we have 12 1/4 in our 3 candy bars. Now, we have to divide that still by this 3. How many 3s can we find in 12? Cassie?
4.
12 divided by 3 equals 4. Okay, does that quotient equal the one that Josh found using our simplified process?
Yes.
Yeah, it does. Now, there's still going to be times where you have to draw a picture in order to really wrap your mind around something. We have our picture here. Okay. 3 candy bars. How many 3/4 can we find in those 3 candy bars? Let's take a look at it. This is 3/4, right? We got 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So that's 1. Here's our second set of 3/4. That's 2. This is our third set of 3/4. That's 3. This is our fourth set of 3/4. So we have 1 3/4, 2 3/4, 3 3/4, and 4 3/4, which confirms our answers here and here. Our quotients all match. Okay, so using one of these processes, I want you to continue with your worksheet, finish the equations that are on your worksheet, and that will be done, that will be due tomorrow morning at the beginning of class.
Okay.
Thank you.